All right, Shalom.
Shalom.
All right, first and foremost, we like to give all the praises, honor, and glory unto the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh,
Yahweh.
Yahweh, Hashem,
Ba'ashim,
Yahushai,
Yahushai,
Hashem,
Ba'ashim,
Rakadash.
Rakadash. All right, double honors and respect to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who rule well and taught us this truth. I would also like to say peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, the whole elect and one third, and you Israelite foreigners, you speckled birds scattered across the four corners of the earth, scattered amongst the heathens that may look like the heathens, but your seed line slash sperm line goes back onto Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Only the remnant and the elect of you are going to understand these mysteries and this truth. All right, this is Brother Salah.
Brother Barak.
All right, and today's lesson is going to be a continuation of the previous lesson titled oh a foolish generation of children. This is going to be a part two to that video. If I scroll up right here, yeah, right here. So this is the first video. My channel. Watch and subscribe for edification. But this is gonna be a continuation. I saw this video. Um, I was at work. Driving, and and this woman right here, appears to be an Edomite. She brings out some good, some good things about, or she explains some things, speaking about, Gen Alpha or this current generation of kids, how basically AI is, deteriorating, their cognitive functions, like explaining like how how these children how they don't know how to read, how they don't know how to write, spell, do basic math, not even toilet trade, and how their attention spans are like basically next to a freaking goldfish, man. Like they can't even focus for like 10 seconds, right? So we're gonna open up with the so we're gonna open with Job chapter 30 verse 8, right? And it says here, they were the children of fools, yeah, the children of base men. They were viler than the earth, right? And it's talking about these Edomites, right? And the reason why we bring this out is because Esau's is the one in rulership, right? And and that takes me to another precept, right? As just as the king, so are his people, so is his people, and let's get that out, substantiate the point. As the judge, so are his officer. And that's in the book of Sirach, chapter 10, verse 2, right? So, with so with Esau and rulership, right? Ecclesiasticus, the book of Sirach, chapter 10, verse 2, as the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers, and what manner of a man and the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein, right? If the people in power, if they're fools, if they're base, man, what does that say about the rest of the people, man? They're gonna be the same way. They're gonna be foolish people as well. They're gonna be stupid. Wise because Esau, man, Esau disregards the ways of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, right? He pushes all out wickedness and rebellion, and with this technology, him ruling in wickedness, right? Seeing all these YouTube shorts, TikTok, Instagram, all these apps, that take away these children's attention, along with the plethora of games they get access on their iPad, like what freaking Roblox, Minecraft, and all that bull crap,
Coco Melon.
Coco Melon,
Yep.
all these kid games, man. What's gonna happen, man? These children's attention spans, they're gonna dwindle, right? They're not gonna be able to retain anything, right? And it's also on these parents' parts, is because these parents, right? They're not. They're not teaching these kids any essential or basic skills, like reading, writing. They're not teaching them their freaking alphabet, and they're not showing them what things are, like, oh, what's this, what's
The,
what's that object over there, what's this fruit, stuff like that, man.
they were treating them like accidents, like almost not even doing the bare minimum at this point.
Yeah, I mean, at least back then they used to give the kids what?
leapfrog device where it had some sort of benefit. And, yeah, you see a fucking Ishikarai man, or I saw the Ishikar family, man. They just put their kid in the fucking iPad. 2-year-old kid, they just leave him there, give him the iPad
On a
the whole
stroller,
fucking
you know, in
day.
a shopping cart, you know, just driving around with a fucking iPad all day. You know, you're about to have a bunch of brain dead war babies. You know, World War III babies.
They're not gonna know what to do, man. These parents, they're not gonna know what to do when when all hell breaks loose, man. So what does it say about these kids, man? You know,
And I got a precept actually.
go ahead, Ak. Yes, sir.
This is the book of Proverbs 22:6. It says, "Train up a child in the way." There, that's because of KJV. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Right. So you're already basically getting these kids a brain because they're so what is the word, neuroplastic, right? It's so malleable. Their brain is so malleable that you're getting them basically addicted to this stuff at such an early age, right? You got these babies. They're not only just addicted to these iPads. They're addicted to, they come out of the womb because they already diabetic too. On top of that, right? Already bugged out, and then you give them, an some of them are already coke babies, drug addicts, right when they're born, and then you give them an iPad.
Well, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and why is that? Is because the parents, they allow them to go through Esau's system, man, and we know what the scripture says, never trust thine enemy, for as iron rusted, so does his wickedness, right? Which is what says that in the book of Sirach, man. You give them over to the system, right? You let them have all these fucking vaccines or whatever, right? Right, and on top of the parents, on drugs, right? Right, and what the fuck's gonna happen to the child, man? It's gonna bug them out. It's gonna turn them into a drug addict, man. Because their parents were put on all these drugs and medications. So, so we're gonna play this video, but before we play this video, we're gonna get the copyright disclaimer, and we're gonna pause the video every now and then to bring out some scriptures. But here's the copyright disclaimer. All right, so I'm going to read it. Disclaimer: copyright disclaimer to Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. So with that out of the way, all right, Akim and Aquath that may be watching, I'm going to play this video. I'm gonna share my screen so you brothers can see. All right, and here it is. Yeah, so you see right here, the title of the video is Gen Alpha Can't Read, but it's okay because we have AI now, upside down smiley face, and here's the channel, Ashley Ember. So yes, here it is.
I'm Gen Alpha. I've never lived a day without technology.
Technology is ruining education. The costs of student use of technology are far outweighing the benefits.
The kids of today are not motivated at all. Even doing a fun book study, they don't care.
And so these kids just have these devices in their hands that they think will get them through the rest of their life, and they're failing in life and in my class.
These kids can't read. They can't decode. They have no vocabulary, no background knowledge. I've never seen anything like it.
I think the schooling system is not preparing people for a world that exists. We haven't grasped the fact that AI is going to be the biggest, most disruptive technology in the lives of our children.
My kids hopefully will never be smarter than AI.
The calculator doesn't mean we stop teaching math. So we have to do the same type of updating with artificial intelligence.
Unless we take personal accountability to teach and learn human skills, they will disappear.
How many people are fully doing all their schoolwork, writing their papers, getting their degrees using AI? We're so doomed.
students are facing academic challenges at levels we've never seen before, like 40% of students across the nation can't read at a basic level kind of trouble. And at this point, it's kind of an undeniable fact that kids are less than all right, as we see behavioral issues on the rise and cognitive efforts decline. Point being, Gen Alpha just can't catch a break, and no one can quite figure out why. But just as we thought it couldn't get worse, AI entered the scene. And now we have to deal with kids using ChatGPT to do their homework for them, meaning they don't even have to think for themselves anymore. As a parent with two littles entering the school age soon enough, I'm very nervous and confused about the schooling world and wonder what's even important in education anymore. Because in a modern world, is it really that bad for students to outgrow an education system designed 50 years ago? Well, that's what we're going to try and get to the bottom of today, how education got this bad, if technology is to blame, and if AI will be its redemption arc or fry every last brain cell Gen Alpha has left. So I was wondering where kids fall on this kids these days severity scale, because people have been raising their fists at the youth for generations now. We need look no further than The Offspring's 90s hit, The Kids Aren't Alright. So either they were ahead of their time, or kids are just made to be perpetually criticized. Well, we can start by looking at a recent headline, the elite college students who can't read books. Not the most promising place to start, but in this piece, Nicholas Dames, professor at Columbia University, shared his concerns, saying that over the past decade, students have become overwhelmed with reading and are bewildered by the thought that they have to finish multiple books in one semester. And it's not just that kids are struggling with reading novels, they don't know how to. One student even shared that she was never required to read an entire book in high school. But that is just the tip of the iceberg of the failing education system. So let's take it back all the way to elementary school, because this is an issue with many layers of challenges where children are going through the early school years with foundational gaps and learning deficiencies. To start with reading, because it's the worst of them all, kids have never been so behind on reading levels. There's a reason why we see this trend of kids don't know how to read on TikTok. And it's not all talk. To repeat for emphasis, 40% of first grade students were well below grade level in reading in 2020, compared with 27% in 2019.
I say this with the utmost love and patience that I can say it with. Y'all, the literacy rates right now are insane. They're crazy. Kids aren't reading. They're not recognizing letters. They're not recognizing letter sounds. This is gonna go much deeper than we think it's going to go. There's teachers in 5th grade saying that their students are reading on a 2nd, 3rd grade level. I have students that can't recognize their letter sounds. I teach 1st grade.
So as you can see, this is a problem from day one of school for a lot of kids, where they aren't learning the foundations of reading, so they have nothing to build upon. As this 1st grade teacher shares, most years by the 3rd week of 1st grade, Heather Miller is working with her class on writing the beginning, middle, and end of simple words. This year, she had to backtrack all the way to the letter H.
We've all heard of the issues with these kids that are being raised on iPads and the parents blaming teachers and not being hands-on in their academics. But when I tell you I was absolutely flabbergasted at the interaction that I had with a child yesterday, I just have no words for it. I'm a bartender at a resort, and this family came up to the bar to order their food. One of the kids, who's about 8 or 9 years old, asked what flavor of Dippin' Dots we had, so I handed her a menu. This way she could read the flavors, and I was going to continue helping the rest of the party. When I tell you that I handed her the menu and she looks at me dead in the eyes and goes, I can't read. I was left absolutely speechless for a few seconds. You're going to tell me around 2nd, 3rd grade she can't read?
And the trends only get worse as we move into the high school statistics, where in 2022, nearly 70% of 8th graders scored below proficient, and of those, 30% scored below basic. So that's how reading's going. But what about math? Well, it's also on a different sort of struggle bus. In spring 2023, just 56% of American 4th graders were performing on grade level in math, down from 69% in 2019. Now, as we know, a lot went on in the 2019-2020 school year to explain these numbers. And while school from home had a massive negative effect on kids' learning, it was not the initiator, but merely an amplifier. Kids are just behind in reading and math, and they're not catching up. As we see here, over time, scores in reading, and especially math, have generally trended upward or held steady. But over the last decade or so, student scores have leveled off rather than gaining. And I just want to take a moment to emphasize how big of a deal this is, because early education shapes a child's overall overall experience and success in school. Low scores in math and reading specifically are a major cause for concern because these are the skills essential to success in nearly every other subject. When students struggle in these areas, it often leads to falling behind across the entire curriculum.
Every year that I've ever taught band, at the beginning of the year, when you're dealing with beginner musicians, the first thing that you do is teach them how to read notes on a music staff. And usually what I see in my classes when students are having a hard time identifying the note names on the staff, most of the time these issues have to deal with them not understanding that there's a line space, alternating orders. But this past year, it was different. They weren't just having those typical issues that you would have to work through. A lot of these kids would not even use alphabet symbols. They would be making up symbols. They would not even know how to write A, B, C, D, E, F, G on their piece of paper. They would also have issues not knowing alphabetical order in general. So if they knew how to write A, B, C, D, E, F, G, they couldn't answer to me what letter would come after C in the alphabet. And I'm not just talking 1 or 2 kids in the class, I'm talking closer to 50%. We're talking about 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, kids that are about to go into high school.
Research shows if children are struggling to read at the end of first grade, they're likely to still be struggling as fourth graders. And in many states with third grade reading gates in place, students could be at risk of getting held back if they haven't caught up within a few years. And
all right, so I'm just gonna pause it right there. So you mean to tell me, man, in Babylon the Great, man, like this is how far Babylon has fallen. Like kids are going into these universities.
8th grade, man. 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and don't know what comes after letter C.
Babylon has truly fallen, man. Call Allah Yahweh Yahushai. Like,
yeah, and these other nations, man, they see that as an opportunity to what they see that as an opportunity, attack, take advantage, manipulate people, right? And it's working.
and you know what's funny, right? You got Caesar Nero saying that, oh, it's a national security. Man, we gotta get all these migrants out. Your own children don't even know how to read, write, or spell past the 8th grade, and the ones that are going into these Ivy League universities, they can't even read. They don't even know how to read the damn novel. Man, through.
True, man.
Yeah. All right. And all right. So we're gonna read the book. So we're gonna read right here the book of Hosea, chapter 4, verse 6. Right now this mainly pertains to Israelites, right? But it can. And I'm gonna explain. I'm saying this. It can to apply to the other nations, right? It says here, "My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, that thou should be no priest to me, seeing that thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, thy power. I will also forget thy children," right? And that's the Israelites, right? Rebelling against Yahweh Shem Yahshai, going against the law, statutes, and commandments, right?
It's different people.
Yeah. And what the Lord do? He brought Israel low. He he destroyed them. He led them into captivity, right? Underneath all these nations, right? And now these same curses, right, are also falling upon these other nations. Mainly Esau, right? Because Esau doesn't even they say America's like a Christian nation, right? Like it's founded on Christian principles. Yet America doesn't. They don't even follow any of these so-called Christian principles, right? And now what do you see in 2025? Because they use terms like secular history or what's it called, secular or secular knowledge, meaning, and we're gonna look up what the word secular means, right? Let's get that. Define secular.
Secular.
Secular. Denoting attitudes, activities, or things that have no religious or spiritual basis, right? So what does that mean? And Esau's a carnal motherfucker, man. Because Esau, revolves around carnality. Like and idolatry, and what's the number one idolatry thing that you see on the rise now is AI, man. What's Cesar Nero, DJT-47 pushing out, man. He's pushing out more laws to deregulate AI. So saying that they got to advance and catch up to China, right? Because ultimately, what's Esau gonna do, man? Esau's gonna use this this AI system and tie it to the MOTB, right? Right, and later what you're gonna see in the video, right? She's basically gonna explain that because because children's cognitive functions, their attention spans, and their critical thinking skills, because all that has gone down because of the rise of technology and AI, which is Esau causing the problem. Esau's going to be like, well, okay, since this is going to be a problem, well, here's what we're going to do to mitigate this, right? We have a solution. Your kids, right? Your kids are going to have to accept, this implant, right, into their foreheads, right? So they can
Learn.
so they get so they can learn, so they can think properly, right? So they can function in society, basically, right? Esau's going to use this rhetoric, to push out that that MOTV, man. As a talking point, they're saying that technology is making kids dumber when it was Esau that was the one that's pushing out this technology in the first place. We're gonna fix this by implanting it into your head, so you can function properly as a human being, right? And that's the fucking devil for you, man. Never trust thine enemy.
Right.
Yes, Locke. Yeah, I was gonna say because ultimately what Esau wants, man, is he wants to gain control and domination, man. He wants to be like the Most High.
I have a precept. I can bring this out real quick.
Go ahead, Ak.
It's the book of Ecclesiasticus 12 and 17. If adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first. And now he pretend to help thee, yet he shall undermine thee. So he's always going to try to, go and stab your back. This is the nature of this devil. He wants to act like he'll help, like he'll offer a solution, but that so-called solution is detrimental. He's just a plain deceiver. That's what he is. He masquerades himself as an angel in light.
That, yeah. That's right, man. Yeah. And another thing I like to say, right? And really, man, she mentioned the education system's failing them. Like these kids, right? Just like how I brought up the term secular, right? Like these kids, they're not really learning anything important in school, right? They're not really teaching them any proper skills, right? Really, they should have learned all those basic skills, from their parents, and what school basically does, man, right? Or at least in the Esau system, like it builds upon that, and it shapes them, in a way, so that they can function in Esau society, right? As I believe it, from this one quote, it says, like, Esau doesn't want free thinkers. They basically want workers. Now your workers don't even know how, now your new generations, excuse me, of workers don't even know how to fucking think properly, right? So what's Esau gonna do to mitigate this, man? Well, he's gonna push out that MOTV, right?
And this devil, he wants a dumb population to control, because ultimately then those people are gonna go and comply and take that fucking MOTB and take that that chip. They're not gonna have any hesitation, man. Right? You know, this man had this system, this this NW Izzy. he's had it coming for a long time. They've been preparing for this for a very, very long time. You can see it, but they wrote on the dollar bill. It's right in front of you, right? Now he's putting those implementations in place, right? You got those they're already replacing cashiers, right? Already replacing factory workers. What does the scripture say? It says, there shall be no work for Egypt, right? Roughly paraphrasing. So you're not gonna have no more workers, and this man, he did this all intentionally.
So we can get that pseudo birthright or that pseudo blessing of the kingdom, which the Lord's not going to allow, man. Because we know that as soon as he rolls out that MOTV, man, the Lord Yahweh he's ultimately going to take this, this man out with them ICBM nuclear missiles, and that chariot laser fire once Yahweh Shai returns. So we're going to continue on with the video. We're going to skip this because this is a commercial sponsor. So right here.
So before we get into how technology specifically is changing school, we need to address the already prevalent issues in the school system. With that, I'm going to attempt to break down the problems in school, but that is a big task, especially when even teachers can't all agree on it, but I'll try my best. The first problem being kids aren't getting enough attention and the help they need in the classroom. I remember even when I was in grade school, class sizes were on the rise, and COVID just expedited that. Because as we know, we had a ton of teachers quitting during the 2020-2021 school year.
After years of being told, don't like teaching, just quit, guess what teachers are doing? Quitting. In record numbers.
Some opting for early retirement during the height of the health crisis, while others left due to differing ideologies towards medicine. There was also a lot of burnout in juggling in-person teaching and remote teaching at the same time, leading some teachers to quit, and some simply just could no longer manage the behavioral issues of Gen Alpha. In fact, a survey in January 2021 found that nearly 1/4 of teachers indicated a desire to leave their jobs at the end of the school year, compared with an average national turnover rate of 16% pre-pandemic. And so class sizes have needed to increase because there's literally no other option when we already were dealing with a teacher shortage and then a massive group of them up and left.
I've been a substitute teacher for nearly a year now, and I just want to say, if you are sending your kids to public school, please ensure that they are doing extra learning on the weekend, extra learning when they get home from school, because I've just witnessed being in a classroom with over 35 kids, one teacher. Now, I don't understand how they're doing that on a day-to-day basis, but for me, that was just overwhelming.
But on top of the teacher shortage, the curriculum being taught has been problematic as well. How convenient. If you've been watching for a while, you've heard me talk about the problem of phonics in early education and how children across the country have been taught to be poor readers for decades now. I won't go too in depth on it because, like I said, I've talked about it before, but it is still needed in this conversation. So in the 90s, the standard for teaching reading to kids switched from phonics-based to what's called 3Qing. This is because new research was showing that kids learn reading better by being thrown into it head first rather than being taught how to actually sound out words and learn the rules, because that's too boring and old school. And so this new system essentially taught kids to read by memorizing sight words and looking for clues in the book to figure out words they don't know. The name 3.
And I'm gonna pause that real quick too, because I remember experiencing going through this in school. Like specifically in high school, right? So like when they say like, oh, when there's like a word that you can't figure out, they'll say, oh, use your context clues and see and see what that word's trying to say, right? Rather than like I remember this I remember what my parents used to tell me, right? They'll be like go to your dictionary and look it up, right? That's why brothers. And we'll tell you, look up what the definition of words, look at what they mean, right? And especially us brothers, the truth, right? Like that's why we look up we go to the Blue Letter Bible. We see what the word originally was in the Paleo Hebrew, and then we're gonna see how it's actually pronounced in the Paleo Hebrew and not the Assyrian script. Because it'll actually give more context to what to what the scripture is saying, right? But in Esau's school, right? They'll say like, lean to your own understanding and try to figure out using context clues, and that's folly right there, man. So let me bring out a couple of precepts, to prove that point. says here. It says here KJV. Lean not to. Right, yeah, Proverbs chapter 3 verses 5 through 6, right? Yeah, trust in the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahshai with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct thy paths, man. But what Esau does, man, in these schools, like, he doesn't even teach the Lord, man. He like he's not like Esau, like, right, as you saw right now, he's not even teaching these kids how to fucking properly read. And mind you, like, and he started this time, he started that, during the early 2010s, right around 2012, 2013. I remember going through that in high school. Saying that, oh, just use your context clues if you don't know what this word means. I mean,
Yeah, and
yeah, instead of going to the dictionary or googling it, because we had Google at that time. That's like, y'all go ahead.
yeah, kind of. I was gonna say that, like, now you have McGraw Hill and that Maxwell, whatever her name is. She her family is tied into that, man. And honestly, Esau is a he's just confuser, man. He just creates all this word salad. He tries to act deep, but he's not deep. And the scriptures talk about the Lord not being an author of confusion. We keep things simple here, man. We break things down directly and correctly. We're not here trying to, confuse people. Meanwhile, this devil brings out a curriculum that's just nothing but confusion. And it's just making people fucking retarded.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I remember seeing when they came out with that as a kid, and I just felt like a weird spirit, like just looking at those books. And I'm sure a lot of people have,
Yeah.
because it's folly, man. The scriptures say, the wisdom of this world is foolishness. You know,
And
let's be real. How many people have actually like went through one of those entire textbooks, right? Most of them are filled with just raw filler information, you know, and the school system isn't even designed thing for people to retain these things either, right?
yeah, but what we're retaining, we have these scriptures, man, in the back of our heads. We repeat these scriptures so many times and we apply them to our life. And they help us, they correct us, they reprove us, used for exhortation, doctrine. Meanwhile, these people, they just go through the motions, man. Everything that they learn, it just goes in one ear and out the other. And that's just Babylon, man. It's just vanity. The present temporal evil world. It's just nothing, nothing in it is everlasting.
And that takes you to another scripture. It says here, and Elder Malcolm always brings out this precept of avoid vain. I avoid and science false falsely so called. All right, so this is. Let me get this right here. All right, so this is the book of First Timothy, chapter 6, and we're gonna start at verse 20. It says here, "O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust. Avoid profane and vain babblings and opposition of science, falsely so called." Right, and if you go that word science, right, it goes into the into knowledge, right, and what you're learning right now, is false knowledge, right, folly, lies, man, deception,
Yeah.
man. And that's literally no different than than the serpent, in the garden, right? Teaching Eve, these false philosophies and these wicked doctrines, right? Right, which
The modern day science, that's the explanation of, the Esau is giving his own explanation to what, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai created, right? And he's adding his own spin to it, right?
Yeah.
And they teaching these kids, evolution and just all these, bugged out things, man.
And I got this precept in the book of Sirach 11 and 10, reading in the GNT. It says, "My child, don't get involved in too many things. If you try to do too much, you will suffer for it. You won't be able to finish your work and you won't be able to get away from it either." What does Babylon do? This system, they give you shitloads of homework, they give you all this unnecessary work, and even in the corporate world, man, they just constantly piling you up with thing after thing after thing. But the point being is, that school system, because we gotta work, but the school system basically just creates, just distractions at all cost. Or so many different things. You got all these different subjects you have to do a day, just getting fucking worked up, teaching you to be a slave, man, to the system.
And Doc, might I add, right? Like I remember remind you this was a chemistry teacher I spoke to in high school, right? Right, like he like I literally heard this from his own damn mouth, and he was an Edomite that I perceived, right, so-called white man, but like he literally told me, and some other students, right, that whatever you learn in school right now is going to be basically useless, in the future, right, and he's right. Right, it's crazy too because I told exactly what that teacher said to my father, and my father said, he got all proud, puffed up, and he said, "Oh, you know what? Go tell that teacher that he's an idiot." Well, guess who's the fucking idiot now? Like, excuse me, not to disrespect my father or anything like that, but like, but it's just that mindset, trust, trusting in Egypt, man, and and we know what the scripture says, woe unto you, that trust in Egypt, man, and that's a lot of Jake right now, man. Not just talking about my father, but Jake that have this mindset of trusting in Babylon when even the serpent himself, when even Esau himself is saying that what you're learning in school is bullcrap. Mind you, again, I heard this all the way back in like what 2011, 2012, that area. So how much more now, man? Here in 2025, nothing but folly. That's what the scripture says. And let me get this, brothers. Salakia. Ye are forgers. Right, Job 13 verse 4, it says here, "But ye are forgers of lies, ye are all physicians of no value," right? And that's Esau right here, man. Telling kids, oh, instead of sounding out the syllables, learning how the word is being properly said, and actually going to your dictionary, or today using Google or whatever, to find out what this word means. No. Just use visuals, context clues, what sentence structures, meanings, and try to figure out what this word says. He's basically saying, make it up yourself, lean to your own understanding versus, doing your own research because Esau, because if you think about it, man, Esau doesn't want you to think and do your own research. Esau is basically saying, just shut up and color, just read, and don't think about it.
And that goes back to that precept that you brought out earlier in the lesson. Hosea 4 and 6. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. That they're destroyed because they wanna follow what the white man tells them to do. They're destroyed because they want to go through the motions and they don't want to take heed to sound doctrine. They go after their own lust. This is why you people have to get fucking destroyed, man. On this side.
What's that? Ezekiel 9 verse 6, man. Slay utterly, old and young, right? Because they didn't want to like repent or hearken unto the word, right? Which we know what the scripture says. 2/3 of our people, man. I mean, they're numbered to the sword. Right. Because they're following the ways of death. They're following the ways of Babylon the Great, man. And what does Babal mean? Confusion. You are literally learning confusion from school, man. And just like what this Edomite woman is saying about the school's curriculum, it's nothing but confusion. And once you get to the workforce, literally all you're told is just to shove in color. You're not really critically thinking anything. Aside maybe doing like a few calculations, which AI and the computer can do any damn ways, and that's exactly what Esau wants. He wants you to become dependent on the system. So when he pulls the rug from underneath your feet, man, you have no choice but to bow down to that MOTB, man, which is what he wants.
Hey, and because they want to teach you, to be replaceable, right?
You know, they ain't teaching you skills. They ain't teaching you, you know, how to build things. You know, how to grow food, right? You know, no, they want you to lean on this devil's infrastructure.
And you know what's funny? Like Esau will gaslight you because I'm gonna say this right now. I remember being in the Pentagon. You know, when I was in the Air Force, right? And I spoke to one of my uncles. You know, well, I say my uncle. He's not really my uncle. He's like he's like this Edomite, this Amalekite man that my auntie, you know, my dad's sister married, right? You know, I met him and his work buddies, right? But one of his work buddies, they'll gaslight you and say like, oh, you need skills when school doesn't really teach you those skills to fucking begin with. Like you learn all that shit on the job anyways, which proves to you that this nigga ain't nothing but the fucking devil. Man, like Esau, man, he'll make you go through his bullshit school. You don't learn anything, and then when we get on the job, he'll be like, oh, where's your skills at? Why don't you have any skills? It's because he didn't really learn this shit in school, and he fucking knows this because it was designed that way. But you know, and we know that it goes back to in the book of Sirach, in the book of Ecclesiastes, which says never trust thine enemy, man. For as iron rusts, so does his wickedness. But we're gonna continue on with the video, and then we're just gonna jump towards the end, to bring out the main point.
Cueing comes from the notion that readers use 3 different kinds of information, or cues, to identify words as they're reading. This means they're looking at the pictures for reference, guessing what word makes sense next in the sentence, and skipping over what you don't know and coming back to it later if you can't figure it out. Which is like actually kind of crazy. Like, I don't know how everyone got on board with it. There must have been some kind of propaganda going on. Because what happens when you run into a word with no context and no skills to actually decode that word?
I was at our kinder parent-teacher conference, and that teacher wants Pepper to show off her newly found reading skills. And we come to the word mother. Now, that should never be in a book, since in this level book at all, right? Because that is not decodable for a kindergartner. It's very common in these balanced literacy texts because they're expecting you to 3Q. So she prompts her on the 3 Qs. Look at the picture, look for clues in the word or around the word, and ask yourself if it makes sense. And Pepper can't do it, so we're left to decode. So I want everybody to try to sound out the word mother like a kindergartner would, right? Ah, right? We can't blend that ever into the word mother. And that's because mother is not a decodable word for a kindergartner.
Also, in researching for this video, I realized that I think I was taught some of the 3 cueing growing up, which I guess makes sense because I'm a 90s baby, so obviously. But when I read one of the cues being skip over words and come back to it later, it like unlocked a memory for me of struggling to read as a kid. But the short version of phonics history is that school districts were convinced of this new system on the basis that children have an inherent ability to learn reading, just like they have the ability to learn to walk and talk all on their own. And so millions of taxpayer dollars were thrown at curriculum materials for this theory of learning. And therefore, millions of children were reading on the basis of guessing words, whether they looked right or sounded right. And the problem here, as you can guess, is that they aren't actually reading, they're faking it till they make it. And teachers didn't know any better, so they just went along with the new style and were told that it was going to make reading fun and easy for kids. Margaret Goldberg, a teacher in the Oakland Unified School District, was with a first grader named Rodney when he came to a page with a picture of a girl licking an ice cream cone and a dog licking a bone. The text said, "My little dog likes to eat with me," but Rodney said, "My dog likes to lick his bone." Rodney breezed right through it, unaware that he hadn't read the sentence on the page. Goldberg realized lots of her students couldn't actually read the words in their books. Instead, they were memorizing sentence patterns and using the pictures to guess. One little boy exclaimed, "I can read this book with my eyes shut." Oh no, Goldberg thought, that is not reading. So, big problem. and the reason why kids aren't proficient readers, because when they grew up and grew out of picture books, they didn't have the skill set to decode new words. There is some good news at the end of this though, as the tides are turning. We're now seeing the return of phonics curriculum, as at least 14 states have banned 3Qing from parts of the education system over the last few years. But we do still have to deal with the consequences of 2 generations being brought up on the 3Qing system. As before, I will link the Sold Story podcast, which tells the whole story of the phonics phenomenon, but in a like true crime style. It's super fun to listen to, and I would highly recommend. On to math.
All right, so we're just gonna pause it there, and yeah, that basically proves the point that yes, you actually do need to train up a child in the ways, man, like kids actually do need to know how to properly read, right, and not just with them fucking picture books, man. Like you, like actually go into like a light novel or something, right, and like and actually read, and actually like excuse me, like like sound out, read the words, and if they don't know a word, like like go over with your kid, right, like specific words, go over with that certain word and explain to them how that word is sound out, and what that word actually means, through definitions, right, basically like with anything else, man. These kids today, they don't know how to do that because like she said, these kids, right, they were never taught that skill set. The education system basically failed them. When it came to reading, so. So basically, man, when it came time to go to university and to read these multiple books, man, in Esau system, man, these kids who aren't able to perform, man, and and this devil, man, he basically fucking planned all this out, man. Man, to basically make these kids dependent on what AI, and eventually this devil, man, he's gonna use that AI technology, and implant it in these kids' brain, he basically he wants to implant it in everyone's brain to basically gain control of these people. So so basically, man, Esau's education system, man, it's nothing but folly and confusion. All right, so I'm gonna continue on.
From what I can see, there aren't any deep-rooted educational malpractices that are harming kids' math skills, but the fact still remains that math proficiencies have been decreasing. The most prominent reason for this, of course, was COVID. Average scores for age 9 students in 2022, layoffs in tech jobs that were So let's talk about how kids are sabotaging their own education. For one, kids just don't think school is important anymore. In a world where they see millennials struggling to get jobs with their degrees in hand, the major layoffs in tech jobs that were supposed to be the largest growing and highest paying field in decades to come, and the growing reality that higher education doesn't always lead to the American dream. It's no wonder why students question whether it's worth the effort.
The kids of today are not motivated at all. Even doing a fun book study, like they don't care. What's worse about not caring about their work is they don't care about consequences. They don't care if they get in trouble. They don't care if they get in school suspension. They don't care if you call their parents. How do you battle that? You can't. It's like you're fighting against a unmovable wall. It's just so draining and disheartening when you're putting your heart and soul into something for hardly any care. Like you can focus on the kids that care, but Man.
But I don't believe that these ideas of school not preparing you for the real world are the only reasons students are losing ambition. Rather, they reinforce the mindset of those who are already struggling and offer a convenient justification for why they don't need to push through and fight to succeed in school. Because it's not just math and reading comprehension that are falling short, but their confidence and sense of identity as learners are also suffering. The early years don't just build academic foundations, they shape how children see themselves in relation to learning. When students struggle early on, they often adopt the belief that they're just simply not good at school, which diminishes their motivation to improve. As these students move up in grade levels without having mastered key reading and math skills, their confidence continues to decline, and they feel so far behind that catching up feels impossible. Student test scores, even starting in first, second, and third grade, are really quite predictive of their success later in school and their education trajectories overall. Being so these screens are also turning our children into goldfish, with non-adolescents who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media face double the risk of mental health problems, including experiencing symptoms of depression and anxiety. And these mental health challenges, of course, play a role in how motivated and capable a child is in the classroom. And this is where, finally, technology enters the conversation. Because on top of the mental health problems that modern technology brings, these screens are also turning our children into goldfish with non-existent attention spans.
These kids get bored very easily, and the moment they get bored, they look to stimulate themselves or to do something that makes them feel interested, and that is very regularly not good choices.
The constant notifications and multitasking habits prevent students from fully engaging with learning materials, resulting in weaker memory retention. As research indicates, frequent switching between tasks, such as checking social media while studying, hampers the formation of strong long-term memories. Many teachers have come forth and said that kids can't pay attention anymore because they're so accustomed to short-form content, and anything longer, they check out or doze off.
Every teacher is looking for a way to keep their Gen Alpha kids engaged in their lessons. Traditional teaching methods do not work. Most of them are consuming video games and short-form content, so why not teach like that? Watch how I take a regularly boring and tough to explain topic and convert it into a captivating short-form video in minutes. All I had to do was type in a 3-sentence prompt and gave it some simple instructions on the format and the type of voice I wanted. Press generate. Imagine you had a superpower that made you weigh less. Sounds amazing, right? Okay, here's the scoop. Your mass is like the amount of stuff you're made of, and it never changes.
Speaking of dozing off, though, as previously mentioned again, kids aren't getting enough sleep with their unregulated screen time, and so they don't have the ability to learn in class when they're literally fighting sleep the whole lesson. Education is so messy right now.
I thought I hated technology because kids were iPad kids growing up and they just have too much access to games and entertainment, and they don't want to use technology for education. They want to use it for entertainment. And to a degree that is true, but what I am learning is more than that, and that technology is directly contributing to the literacy decrease we are seeing in this country right now. A lot of these kids don't know how to read because they have had things read to them, or they can click a button and have something read out loud to them in seconds. Their attention spans are waning because everything is high stimulation. They can just scroll, watch less than a minute. They can't sit still for very long. Something I've realized is, like, on a day, I know when I was their age, I thought movie days were a treat. I loved movie days. It was a way to relax, kind of take a break. And for them, what they mean when they say they want a movie is they want a movie on in the background for the noise while they scroll on their phones, put their headphones in, and look at TikTok and maybe talk to their friends and not pay attention to anything.
And the combination of all of that means that kids are dealing with long-term memory issues. And you know what subject suffers the most from that? Math. Because every year's skills stack upon the previous, and if you can't remember it, then you're stuck falling behind. The constant information overload from kids' phones
sharp after spending hours scrolling on social media, that's not your imagination, and there's actual science behind this. So let me explain. Research has found that people who frequently multitask with digital media have reduced sustained attention and working memory. And social media constantly bombards your brain with quick, ever-changing information and training it to crave instant gratification instead of deep focus. And when you rapidly switch between posts, videos, and notifications, you're not fully engaging with any one thing, so your brain doesn't encode it properly into memory.
Harvard psychologist Daniel Schachter said that while technology can aid in certain cognitive functions, it can also impair our ability to recall information. Schachter explains that when students frequently shift their focus between tasks, such as checking their phones while studying, they don't fully engage with the material. This makes it harder for students to form long-term memories. Additionally, students depend on technology to help them remember more than their own memory. And so if we're looking at whether or not technology has been bad for kids in their journey through school, I think there's definitely something to be said about not using it too early on to prevent overstimulation in like the elementary years. But if the claim is that technology is overall bad and that laptops in the classroom are harmful, I don't think that's true. The real problem here is the use of technology outside of the classroom that's limiting the kids' ability to learn.
All right, so we're gonna pause there, right? In the beginning of that segment, right? She basically explained how these kids basically lost their motivation for school because they see all these millennials that have their degrees, like bachelors, masters, hell, even doctorate degrees, and they can't even find jobs, right? So what is it? So what happened, man? They demotivated these kids. It's their desires to like even like focus or even be in school, man, on top of technology, right? And the scriptures speak on this, right? And Brother Barak, you mentioned that there will be no more work for Egypt, right? Let's get that. There is no work for Egypt. Right, so that's right here in Isaiah 19, verse 15, right? And it says here. Well, actually, we can start at verse 14, right? It says here, the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yashai hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and they have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof, as a drunken man staggereth in his vomit, right? Right, right, and if you look up this word perverse, right? Let's actually get this in the blue letter. Let's get the Strongs, and we're gonna look up that word perverse, right? Again, look, the importance of like looking up words and definitions, something that they're not teaching in these schools nowadays.
Strong's H5773. If
Well, let's see how that sound out in the Paleo Hebrew. So let's go right here, Hebrew language. Let's see not that one. If it has. Oh, it's I. If I will wait no Slakia. Yeah, no, move those fucking vowels. I see let's see I I'll IOM if I'm not mistaken, but distorting, perverted, warped, right? And that's yeah, and as you saw, that's what Esau did. Not only did he push out lewdness, right? But like, but also he pushed out a warped reality, right? Revolving around Edomite supremacy, right? Because what does Esau push out, right? He push out what, like, as you said, right? Freaking evolution, the fucking Big Bang Theory, man, and and that's nothing but folly and confusion, right? That's that heathen raging, imagining a vain thing, right? And they push that out, as fucking doctrine to these kids, right? That's why these kids have fucking brain rot, is because they learning nothing but lies, right? Right, and right here's the main point in Isaiah 19 verse 15. Neither shall there be any work for Egypt which the head or tail, brush or wrench may do, right? And as she said in the video, right? They got all these degrees, right? They got their fucking bachelor's, master's, and doctor's degrees, but yet they can't even find jobs, right? So what's the so what's the next generation gonna think, man? Man, let's get this right here. They that look out the window. They that look out the window. All right, this is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, verse 3, right? And it says here, in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinder cease because there are few, meaning there's going to be like, what a few jobs, right? And work's going to be low. And those that look out the window, those be darkened, right? What? So these kids in schools, man, they don't see, any work opportunities anymore, right? Every kid, in the previous video said they want to be like a content creator or something, or and and they because they can't even find or get a conventional job, right, and that's Yahweh Bashim Shai, ultimately, bringing down Babylon the Great. For all the wickedness that that, yeah, Slakia. That's Yahweh Bashim Shai, bringing down Babylon the Great for all the wickedness that that they've done around the earth, man. And so that day of judgment is coming near. To these people, man.
Okay, but what really throws a curveball in all of this is the rise of AI in schools. Because as much as many teachers want to avoid it, there's no way around students using AI. So how on earth do we navigate this? And what are the implications moving forward? Well, the main problem we've been seeing since 2023, when ChatGPT went live to the public, was, as we know, high school students are straight up using it to do their homework for them. And since then, things have only gotten worse, because obviously kids will opt for not doing work if they can. The share of teens who say they use ChatGPT for their schoolwork has risen to 26%, according to a Pew Research Center survey of US teens ages 13 to 17.
And
That's up
part of
13%.
that's a lie too.
Yeah,
Because they don't want to get don't want to get in trouble.
We know the number is more than that, man. And that's basically what these elites want. They want that over reliance on AI. They want people not to think for themselves, man.
From 2023. And while this is a big problem, the weirdest part of it, I find anyways, is that college students are doing this, which, like, I guess makes sense, but my problem is, like, why are you paying for an education that you're not learning anything from? Like, it makes more sense why high school students would do it, to just get out of their work, but you go to university.
Why is that, Ock?
Because they're going to college just to what? Suck cock.
Hey, man, hey, man, that's right, man.
And this is why these colleges are making money, because these kids are just a bunch of kids that want to have sex. They don't really care about learning. Like, the good majority of them don't really care about their education. They want to make friends and have sex and have freedom away from their parents, to go play games, play fucking Fortnite, be in their own dorm. This is smoke weed. This is what these people want to do, they don't. And this devil, he knows that's true, you know. Why do you think he shows rebellious teenagers in all these college movies, all these shows, all these shows like Gen V, where all they're doing, like this school full of superheroes, all they're doing half the time is having sex, having rituals, right? These people, they're not getting no, they're getting no wisdom, knowledge, understanding of the scriptures. you know they have no really very little critical thinking skills, right? Very little discernment, and so that's why we have to. We're very fortunate to have this. We're not like these heathen people.
And Doc, might I bring out, right? I brought this out in the previous video, but we're gonna bring it out again. Folly is, yeah, that's right. Ecclesiastes chapter 10 verse 6. Folly is set in great dignity, and the rich sit in the low place, man. And the rich, man, are the ones who have this knowledge with an understanding, from on high, man, from Yahweh Bashi Messiah, starting with our apostles and elders, a great millstone, and the brothers on down. That teach the likewise doctrine, man. While everyone else, man, is learning nothing but what fucking bullshit, man. And that's and that and that's Babylon the Great. Getting ready to fall on itself. Because why? Because they walked in great pride.
What does the scripture say? A house divided upon itself.
Yeah, that's right,
I can't
Aqua.
remember the scripture, but something along those lines.
Let's see. A house. Yeah, Yahushua brought this out in the book of Mark, right? Right, Mark chapter 3 verse 5. And if a house be divided against itself, that that house that cannot stand, right? And why? It's because these people are fucking prideful. As it says, right? Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall, man. These people walked in great pride. And let's get that. Walked in great pride. Right. Right, it says here, Second Ezra chapter 8, verse 50, for many great miseries shall be done to them that in the latter time shall dwell in the world, because they have walked in great pride, man, and that's these people right now, man. These motherfuckers, right, these people, that go to these colleges, not only are they prideful, but they're prideful and stupid, man. And the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, man, yeah, these people are basically, these people are basically finished, man. They're ripe for the harvest, which is what, utter destruction, man. Just straight throughness.
University to learn a certain skill set and use it in the
brain
world, ideally.
But in terms of like using it to cheat in college, I work in higher ed, and I just want to say, like, wither half-ass your work. That's the time-honored tradition of college. Do your own work badly. Do a shit job. Half-ass it. Learning to half-ass things is such an important life skill. And your professors want to see that. Like, they want to see your insane 2 a.m. Adderalled up brain working, Like, that's part of college, is turning in shit that makes absolutely no sense.
So you're really just...
And now that basically proves your point. These kids are learning nothing but bullshit in school. But
Yeah.
But
they got more on those pills, Adderall, right? More melatonins, Xanax, right? All sorts of all pharmaceuticals, all sorts of chemicals, steroids, right? That's where Esau, he wants you to be on. He wants you, depending on, this whole cycle. This devil, he measures every statistic, right?
And now that you mention it, right, like like Esau, man, 9 out of 10 times he like no like like this like I'm gonna tell you the truth. This nigga probably doesn't care like what his own people writes. If you know if they go to college, right, or whatever, you'll do whatever exam, like he's gonna fucking pass him, right. Even if they wrote bullshit, you know, I kind of noticed that or picked up onto that, right? But if it's like Jake or any other heathen, right, he's actually gonna grade them on merit or grade them more harshly or whatever, right? They'll say, oh, it's a learning curve, but really what it is, this nigga Esau, man, I've noticed he'll pass his own people even if his own people are like actually stupid, right? Like they didn't actually study or anything. They'll pass them while everyone else like Jake, you know, and these other heathens, man. So like Jake and you know Jake and these heathens, like Esau's gonna grade them more strictly, man. And pass them a lot less. Because why this damn devil he'll only want to promote like what other Edomites might like to the workforce or promote other Edomites that they had to have that college degree, but now that's not working anymore, right? Now these Edomites that have these degrees, they can't find these fucking these jobs anymore, right? Which goes to show you, man, we're at the end of Esau's kingdom, right? Because now he's not finding the same opportunities, that his parents did or his grandparents.
No more jobs, no more vacations, no more parties, no more block parties, none of that. All that shit's gonna be out of the window, man. Like the finish. These people are done, man. They're craving, they're craving that, childhood like state when they're children, right? Because what they are children, they've been spoon fed their whole life, right? They've never been they never had to go through any sort of problem, right? Never had to figure things out themselves, right? These people are finished, man. Yeah.
Spoon fed you. They'll say, "Oh, but I worked hard through school. I went to study like bullshit." Your teachers probably like stare at that paper and be like, "Oh yeah, it's good enough. I'll give you like an A, B plus, A minus, whatever. Make it look believable." And then and then these niggas get their fucking degree, and go to a shitty job or whatever, right? But now the time for that is basically over.
And this is why they call them what, master's degree, right? A doctorate. Why? Because you were indoctrinated, or master. These people are your master, right? This devil, he's telling you right in front of your face. Yeah. And what was that one joke we would have? No, what was it called? Not, it was not about a, not was it about a degree? What was that one? What was that one joke?
I remember. It was a long
Yeah,
time ago.
succeed. Yeah, they tell you got to go to college to succeed
Also,
because, well, what? Because a lot of these people, they're sucking that seed, off their professor, sucking their professor off for that money, sucking their dick, man, for that not money, slucky, for that, for that A plus,
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
just to get a little fucking receipt saying, "Oh, I got a degree now. Companies can hire me."
Yeah, it's that cycle. The teachers, they teach the students, and then the remnant of those students, they become teachers, right? And the cycle just repeats over and over again. You know, and you got fucking moronic teachers. The idiots, they who want to see you fail. They don't care about your best interests. And we have a family member that's we're not going to get too into it, but he's a priest and a theologist, and he wants to see us fail. He don't even know the fucking scriptures, and this guy's been studying what, 50 years of his life, and he wants to be called professor. You can be a professor. You can have all these degrees in the world, man, and the Lord can uplift somebody with a so-called disability and make them more wise than these fucking so-called professors in this world. And I got one last precept. I don't know if you, unless you got anything to bring out. wanted to close out on this. This is the book of Jeremiah 3:15. It says, "And I will give you pastors according to my heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding." So, we are very fortunate to have these apostles and elders, GMS, the teachers who are teaching the similar doctrine, right? Because the Lord, He set these men up, according to what His heart, right? Certain individuals, sincere men to teach, other sincere people, right?
That's right, man. And the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai, man. He only chose a very specific group of people to actually understand this doctrine. And a few men to actually teach this word. To gather the hopeful elect, man. When that day of judgment comes, right? That's what that's and that's basically why the wisdom of this world is foolishness to Yahweh, but it truly is foolishness, man. Because as you saw right now, like these kids in these colleges, they're not really learning anything, even to their excuse me, even to their specific career field, whatever it is, right? Whether it be programming, nursing,
Oh yeah, and a lot of engineers, these people, a lot of videos of these medical students quitting, just quitting.
And what do you see most of these nurses doing, man? Committing adultery on their husbands,
Yep.
going and doing some abominable shit.
Yeah, everywhere there's wickedness. Everywhere, everything's been, defiled at this point, right? So these schools never gonna teach you, and they're only gonna get more foolish, right?
That's right, Doc. And and so I'm just gonna skip all the way to to the end where she talks about where she mentions about excuse me, and I think it might be the end of this video, but she mentioned something about kids needing like a brain implant or something, right? To bring out the main point.
So, is tech good or bad for education? Well, we hate to hear it, but it's a bit of both.
Hey, 144.
It's very much bad.
Call law y'all bashing me out shy.
Bad if you're using it badly. Like the effects of cell phones on kids cannot be understated, that it's really ruining education for them. But I don't think it's bad to have technology in the classroom. Like we had it when we were in school and there weren't any learning deficiencies at that time, right? It's just having the right technology, not the wrong technology. I also think it is important, in fact, to have technology in school because kids should get trained on it because that's what the real world is like. It just can't become a crutch. Also, I want to acknowledge that it's just really scary to be a parent right now. And I know every generation of parents says that, but like things are so crazy. And the only thing I can hold on to is the fact that we can help guide our children through this and do the best we can to teach them the rights and wrongs of technology. As for my predictions on AI, it's just that, a prediction. Like it's my best guess based on where we're at right now. But that can change in a year with new regulations or, of course, new advancements.
Let me take it back.
Based on the structure of producing multiple tests. And now she's in jail for fraud. My point being that everything I say moving forward is on the basis that all the silicone tech bros aren't stretching the truth. But one of the positive predictions of AI in the future is that it could solve our teacher shortage issue. Instead of one teacher to 30 kids, with AI we have a digital teacher assigned to each student. With an AI-enhanced high-dose tutoring model, every student can have access to their own virtual tutor that adapts to their pace, understands their strengths and weaknesses, and provides targeted support. This allows personalized learning to be more accessible. This is a really promising probability as more educational support can really boost those math skills and reading scores for those who are struggling. The other thing that we have to think about is that the world is changing so much that the format of education that was established in the 1900s is arguably not even applicable to the modern day. So why should we be holding so tightly onto it? Modern education is heavily based on the structure of producing workers who follow orders without question. There's
and there it is right there. That receipt, man. Modern education is heavily based on the structure of producing workers, not thinkers. So basically, you go through school and even these higher education places, man, and they basically just tell you to just slack you. They basically just tell you to to shut up and color, man. Man, just like when you go into the workforce.
Great reward for following the rules and repetition for no reason other than the benefits to those above you. The issue with that structure of repetition and simply following orders is that it is based on an industrial age-like society where those traits of being able to simply follow orders and repetition were rewarded. And that just doesn't matter when there's so much demand for innovation, creativity, thinking outside the box, and the ability to collaborate.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm gonna pause right here. And that fourth industrial revolution is gonna be that MOTB, man. And which is stated in Revelation chapter 13, 16 on down, man.
With
Yeah,
others.
the
And that brings up the question.
transhuman agenda. The merging of man and machine. Right.
That's what they want. And excuse me, like she did mention about the brain chip, saying that because these students' cognitive abilities have went down, they might need that, man, and that's exactly what these wicked elites want. I'm trying to find that clip.
Of whether education really matters at the end of the day. Like in 50 years, will it be helpful at all for children to learn problem solving skills and think critically when AI will be so integrated into our lives that it's just not applicable anymore? Definitely a weird thought, but a good question to have moving forward, because if we all have Elon's chips in our heads, then thinking is over anyways. Even saying
that's it right there. That's it. That's exactly what the fuck Elon and these tech giants want, man. They want to implement that MOTB. That's exactly why they're pushing out all this AI bullcrap, all these apps.
And she's saying that with normality too, like
And I wouldn't be surprised if she's gonna be one of those people that take that MOTB, man. That's someone right there that people like this individual on the screen, man. And I'm just gonna say it right now, they gonna be missile food, man. And
yeah, she's just saying that with like tranquility and just with no discernment, whatsoever,
and see and yeah, that's basically what happens, man. When when people aren't taught the scriptures, man, there's a consequence. For being rebellious against Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, man. And the brother Yalsop, he brought up a beautiful precept, 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11. Least Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices, right? And what Satan did, right? He literally pushed out, these quote unquote smartphones with AI and all these apps, right? These video shorts, like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube shorts, to distract the minds of these developing kids, right? And basically over time, basically made these kids stupid, right? They're unable to read, write, do math, hold any form of critical cognitive thinking, right? Right, and what Esau basically did, right, is create a reliance to this technology, right? That's why the scripture says, a gift destroyeth the heart, and that's what Esau basically did. He gifted them. Really, this came from Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, man. The Lord revealed it unto these devils, but this devil, right? The Lord allowed this devil to use this technology wickedly, right? All right, so let's get this right here. A gift destroyeth. All right, Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 7. Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart. Right, and yeah, being in Esau's fucking education system, that is actually oppression, because we are forced to learn his ways in order to survive in this man's kingdom, man, or in this society or whatever, right? Right, going on to him, for the want of all things, right? But now, because we're at the end, man, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai is revealing revealing all these things of what Esau's doing, right? And it's shameful, right? Because now Esau's, is being revealed to be, not the most superior man on the planet. His children are also being stupid. Are also, Saki are also being proven to be, be stupid, man. They don't have the cognitive abilities. It is to do basic reading or math and and basically, right, supposedly this is the next generation that's going to go into the workforce and help serve other people, right, but they can't do that, right, and but these elites don't care is because as I don't know, if it was Elon or whoever said this, right, but they're basically planning to replace everyone, with AI bots, and that's what Esau wants, man. And but you know what, Yahweh Bashi Shai, excuse me, he's eventually gonna put a stop to to all this. So we're gonna close out with this last precept, and then that wicked should be All right, Second Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 8, and it says here, and then that, and then and so excuse me, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord Yahweh Bashi Shai shall consume with the spirit of his mouth. The prophets, through the Holy Spirit, reading the testimony of Yahweh Bashi Shai, and destroy with the brightness of his coming, and then that's when Yahweh Shai, man, he physically comes down, with the fathership, that giant chariot, or what the world calls a UFO, man. He's gonna come down, beam up his elect, right, and basically rebuke and destroy all all these wicked inventions, that Esau has created, right. He's gonna blow up Babylon the Great, once they push out that MOTB, which we are not to take, that micro C hip implanted in the right hand or the forehead, and once he implements that, Babylon's gonna get nuked. The elect's gonna get beamed up, get changed, get the new spiritual bodies, and then that's when the kingdom is gonna be set up on earth as it is in heaven, man. And so with that, we're gonna end off the lesson right there. I hope this lesson's been edifying to you, Akim, and you feel Akwath. And with that, I'd like to say, Kol Halayim La, Abanawa, Yahweh,
Yahweh,
Ba Hashem,
Hashem,
Yahweh Shai,
Yahushai,
Ba Hashem, Ruka Kadash.
Rakakra.
All right, double honors and respect to our apostles and elders, a great millstone, who rule and taught us this truth. I would also like to say peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, the hopeful elect in 1/3, His brother Salah,
Brother Brock.
and the brother Yalsop here. And with that, we have to say shalom. Until next time.